Complacency. Something that many of us experience at some point in our lives. When we experience success, we can feel like we're just okay the way we are and just try and keep everything the way it is. But at some point, life forces you to change, or tries to force you. And if you ignore that attempt to change, you will experience failure far worse than what you may have before. And we are seeing that right now in the world of sports with the Boston Celtics. Despite a game one where they missed the most threes in an NBA postseason game, they still decided to try and live and die by the three. This complacency might just lead to a very early exit for what many people thought was the easy favorite in the Eastern Conference. And today, we must look at how complacency may have killed the Boston Celtics season. And that must start with Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum's shortcomings in this series has been nothing short of a reflection of the shortcomings of this Boston Celtics team. The unwillingness to go downhill and attack. Going 4 for 15 from 3 in game 1. And settling for step back threes against Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson in the fourth quarter of game 1. If we can even look at the footage here, Tatum will try and break down Brunson. But instead of actually again going downhill and getting to the rim, he decides he can step back and settle, just like how this Celtics team has, and go for another 3. This unwillingness to attack, to let the paint basically be untouched by your team. Jayson Tatum, however, is only a symptom of the even bigger problem for the Boston Celtics, and that is the game plan drawn up by Joe Mazzulla. And now we must look into how the complacency might be coming from the top down and has affected this team and their play. The start of this sequence is with a foul on Mitchell Robinson by Jayson Tatum. Clearly something that was meant to be done by Mazzulla because they wanted to get Robinson out of the game. However, you now are lessening the fouls you have to give in order for this Knicks team to get into the bonus. Seemingly, again, they wanted Mitchell out of the game with any cost, but it seemingly Tom Thibodeau coached circles around Mazzulla by doing this. Horford immediately goes and fouls Robinson, which means they only had one foul to give before getting into the bonus. OG Anunoby was able to come into the game now, and the Cat gets the ball, gets it over one more time, gets the and one. Now you might say, Emster, obviously that's a big play, but even more importantly, that would be the last foul the Boston Celtics could give before they got into the bonus. And now we're going to look at how this game plan and this decision to foul Mitchell Robinson cost them the game just as much as the inconsistent shooting has. 19 seconds left, the game in the balance. And in the end, the Joe Mazzulla game plan is what cost them everything. Drew Holiday gives up the foul on Jalen Brunson, who is able to then go to the line and make the 2 free throws that seemingly put away the Celtics' chance at keeping some form of home court advantage. That home court advantage, however, also was lost due to the horrendous defending that was happening in the second half of these games. When the New York Knicks started to make their run, miscommunication was afoot everywhere. So now we are going to see some of these miscommunications that were happening and being able to dive into how what was by far for a lot of people probably the best or second best defense in these playoffs have yet again folded. For example, let's look at this possession here. Brunson brings the ball up the court, gets the DHO-esque action from Mitchell Robinson. Josh Hart is able to float up to this right wing, and Jayson Tatum again is literally just staring at Brunson. Pritchard is staring, Jaylen Brown is staring, but he starts to go over. Josh Hart is left wide open and is able to start to sink threes and can build momentum. When a role player can see his shot fall, things can get very, very bad for an opposing team very, very quickly. Or take a far simpler possession like this. 7 seconds left on the clock. Brunson drives in. Tatum comes over. Porzingis is staring. Brown is staring. And Josh Hart yet again is left wide open to cut the lead to 15. At what point do you not acknowledge that you just need to simply communicate and you will find success and you will win these basketball games. However, it would be foolish and even complacent of myself to completely write off the defending champions from any hope in this series. So while complacency has plagued this team, we can look at just the one thing that they need to do more than anything. Obviously, the defense can change. The coaching direction, you can argue, just take less threes. Tatum can take that aggression and maybe the shot will start to fall. But most importantly, is to attack the paint. And we're going to see how that worked in that first quarter of game 2 and how that can change the Celtics playoff run. So Jaylen Brown, funny enough, is actually the best example of this in the first quarter. You're going to see here he gets the ball, gets Hart one-on-one in the mismatch almost, right? Goes downhill, Cat can't really do anything, and that's a tough fader. Now, obviously, you get the and one, which is also an added benefit, but either way, those are the sort of looks that you want if you are the Boston Celtics. And then that's continued by another great sequence. Gets Hart again in the post-up mismatch. Cat can't come over to help, or else Luke Cornett gets a wide open lane. And yet again, look at just how simple it is for this Celtics team to build a 9-point lead off of purely being able to back down their opponent and get to the rim. Now, obviously, would it be this simple every time? No, but neither are half of the threes that they end up trying to take anyways. So when you get to it, if they get downhill and attack, let's just look at one more example, right? Gets Brunson on him, gets that step past OG. OG gets a little bit of a shove from Brown and is able to create that separation. All of these adjustments, however, are up to the Boston Celtics. And if whether or not this Saturday night they want to be able to fight to save their season or to go down and basically submit to the New York Knicks. If they can win that game Saturday night, anything could be possible for game 4. At least getting one before 3-0 is important. Otherwise, this season is over, and it's quite frankly because the Celtics rested on their laurels of being the Boston Celtics. They thought at the end of the day, it would not matter, that there was no team that is better than them. Now, on paper in the East, that was absolutely correct, but the problem is they weren't performing to their standards, and the Knicks haven't quite either. They haven't necessarily shot well in any of these games. In a lot of these scenarios, the Knicks have fought for their lives. If their shots start to fall too, then things can get ugly. So Boston, all I have to ask you or your fans or anything like that is, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to see another parade after just 1 year? Let me know what you guys think, man. I have been really enjoying this new type of content I've been making. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. As always, guys, this was Mr. No Hoops. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Have a beautiful rest of your day, guys. Peace out.